All right, Larry Kruger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as Daniel Jeremiah weighed in on what he thinks the 49ers may do on draft day. We'll talk about that coming up next. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle. Go get the brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon and Mary and tell them that Larry Kruger sent you. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove. Call Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264. And the first Friday of every month, they're doing a special event down there. Give Anthony a call, and he'll tell you all about it. But it's a phenomenal event with free food and drink, and you can bring your collectibles and buy and trade on the first Friday of every month throughout the summer months, May through September. Check out Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles. All right, let's talk a little bit about Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network. He's their draft analyst, and he spoke to the media during a nearly 2-hour conference call and fielded all kinds of questions about the upcoming 2024 NFL Draft. And, one of the questions was, are the Niners going to trade up in the first round to land an impact player? Do they need to? And, it's interesting. Jeremiah said, they've got a nice haul of picks here. So if they want to move up, they absolutely have the ammunition to do so. I just think when you look at the needs that they have and some of the different areas that they could go, if you're thinking about corners and edge rushers, maybe you miss out on the top tier. It's interesting. I mean, we don't know what the Niners' top priority is. Is it an edge rusher? Is it a defensive tackle? Is it a offensive lineman? Is it a corner? Is it a wide receiver? If they're looking for interior offensive linemen or wide receivers in the first round, Jeremiah thinks that they can stay put at 31 and find a number of options. Now, I love Zach Frazier. I love Xavier Legette, Malachi Corley. I think it's very reasonable to believe that all three of those guys could be there on the board at 31, and they don't need to move. So if they love Zach Frazier and want to start with a dominant center, if they love Corley or Xavier Legette and they want to start with a receiver, they could stay right there at 31 and just wait, because I think most of those guys are kind of thought to be, somewhere between 35 and 50. You never really know because every board is different, but that's kind of where the mock drafts have them. Jeremiah went on to say, I still think that there will be a quality corner there personally, even though some of the top guys might go. I don't really see them in a position where they need to trade up. I think this is more filling out your roster, getting a layer of depth. Now, to me, another guy who I think is absolutely could be in their crosshairs is Max Melton, the cornerback from Rutgers, who's a very good prospect. He's incredibly physical against the run. He ran in the 4.3s, very productive player. When you watch the film of Melton, you're like, wow, look at this guy. This guy steps up and starches people. He's a real hitter. And then you see that 4.3 speed and the confidence that he has playing the corner. I think he could be a plug and play guy. And I think he could be on the board at 31 if they want to go corner. The other guy is TJ Tampa. TJ Tampa from Iowa State, big corner, very physical. And then Daniel Jeremiah was asked about, do the Niners have the stars in place? And he says they have the stars in place. So I don't think they're in a position where they say, hey, we've got to get up there. We must get this accomplished. I don't feel like they're in that spot here. I think they can be a little bit more patient than that. So he was also asked about the Niners roster, and does he view it as an aging roster that lacks impact youth across the board outside of Brock Purdy? And he didn't really go with that notion, didn't really agree with that. He says, I do think they have such a rock solid nucleus of blue chip players. The elite teams have between 8 to 12 blue chip guys, premier guys. They've got that. They've got that kind of checked. So now it's about having the depth in place that you can withstand injuries and not have enormous drop off at these other positions. So I don't think they need a superstar draft, but I think they need depth along the offensive line. I think they can find upgrades there. They can continue to look at the corner position. I think in a draft like this, where they're picking at 63 and 94 in the second and third round. I think there's opportunities there to get players that can come in the secondary and help out and be part of the mix right away. He also noted, he also said adding another receiver along the way as well shouldn't be difficult to do in this draft. So that's Daniel Jeremiah's thoughts, and it's when you look at the receiver group, I agree with him. I think there's going to be options there. You know, Harrison, Neighbors, Adunze going to be gone, but there's a chance Brian Thomas is going to be there. I don't think he will be, but if they like him, there's a chance they could trade up for him. If not, I'm very confident that Troy Franklin, Lad McConkey, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette, Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, Malachi Corley, that next group of wide receivers, I think is definitely going to be on the board for them at 31. And maybe some of those guys may be on the board for them when they pick in round two. So, and then, I said I like Malik Washington. I like some of the day three receivers. I think there's some underrated guys, Jacob Cowing, Javon Baker, Luke McCaffrey, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint from Georgia, Tyler Harrell from Miami. There's some good receivers. Josh Cephas from University of Texas San Antonio, Bub Means from Pitt. There are some. This is David White from Western Carolina is one of my favorite kind of day three sleeper wide receivers. So there's no doubt that they're going to be able to get a receiver late. Now, as far as offensive tackle, I think it's safe to say that Joe Alt, Taliesin Fuaga, Fashanu from Penn State, probably J.C. Latham and Troy Fatanu from Washington are probably all going to be gone. But there's a chance at 31 that Amarius Mims is there, that Tyler Guyton's there, that the BYU kid's there, Jordan Morgan from Arizona, Patrick Paul from Houston. I think those guys are all potentially there at 31 if they want them. If they want to wait a little bit, I love that next tier. That includes Blake Fisher, Christian Jones, Roger Rosengarten, Javon Foster, Garrett Greenfield. I think those guys could be there for sure in rounds 2 and 3. And then it's just a matter of, what are you looking for on the offensive line? And then if you are looking for a center, I think that might be the sweet spot. They may be staring at Graham Barton and Zach Frazier. I think those guys are really good centers and could be anchors at center for the next decade. They're going to be there, I believe, at 31. Bo Limmer, who I really like a lot, Tanner Bortolini. Those guys are definitely going to be there in the second and third round. So there's centers that are available later. And then, of course, defensive tackle. I mean, I think you always have to look at defensive tackle when you're the Niners. Will Johnny Newton fall to them? He could. He's projected to go 17, but he may fall because of the injuries he's had. Byron Murphy, I think, is probably going to come off the board before they pick. But when they pick at 31, they may be staring at Braden Fisk, Johnny Newton, Rook yeah, Mason Smith, Michael Hall, Chris Jenkins. They're all probably going to be there when the Niners pick at 31. So that's going to be interesting. Do the Niners go for a top tier defensive tackle at 31, or do they go for, the seventh or eighth best offensive tackle? So, they're in an interesting spot. I don't necessarily think that they have to trade up. If they want Fuaga or Latham or, a top tackle, one of the real top tackles, offensive tackles, they would have to trade up. But I like the second tier quite a bit. I think they're at 31. They're going to be staring maybe at a choice of, do you want to go Zach Frazier on the offensive line? Do you want to go Marius Mims on the offensive tackle spot? Do you want to go Michael Hall or Aurora Rowe or Johnny Newton or Chris Jenkins at the defensive tackle spot? Do you want to go TJ Tampa or Max Melton at the corner? Do you want to go Cedric Gray or Peyton Wilson potentially at the linebacker spot? I think in a lot of ways, 31 is a great spot for the Niners. And if anything, especially if they don't, they may be able to take 31 and trade down, 5 to 10 spots into the second round and add more draft value and more draft capital, I should say, and still get the player that they covet. So I think they're in a good spot, and as far as depth, they got a bunch of picks. You know, I'm not in the camp that says parlay a bunch of those picks for one guy because it's football. You need depth. I mean, if you want to be honest about the Niners situation, you could see them drafting potentially a quarterback, maybe a running back, definitely a receiver, definitely a tight end, probably two offensive linemen, at least one defensive tackle, one defensive end, a linebacker, maybe two safeties, and a corner. So when you add that up, that's a number of needs. So I don't know that they're in position necessarily to trade 5 or 6 picks or three or four picks and move up for one guy. The draft is a crapshoot. And listening to Bill Belichick yesterday on ESPN on the McAfee show talking about wide receivers and quarterbacks, and he made a great point that the history shows, if you look at the numbers, that it's a kind of a 50-50 proposition on whether or not you're going to hit on a receiver or a quarterback when you draft them in the first round. So, do you trade up for, obviously they're not looking for a quarterback, but do you trade up for a receiver? That seems very risky. And then it's just a matter of beauty in the eye of the beholder. Do you love Amarius Mims? I mean, I love the way Amarius Mims looks potentially, but he's only had 8 career starts. Do you feel good about what he's going to be going forward? Zach Frazier to me is a very clean prospect. Michael Hall is a very clean prospect, excellent interior pass rusher. So I see a lot of Bryant Young and Michael Hall, to be honest. I mean, he's fast. He's the fastest defensive tackle in the draft. He can rush the passer. He's quick. And I don't subscribe to the theory that he can't play the run. I think he's a much better run player than people are giving him credit for. So interesting dialogue with Daniel Jeremiah, and I think he sees it the way I see it. They've got depth, they've got talent, they can sit where they're at and be in a very nice position. They don't necessarily need to move up to get a top corner, to get a good offensive lineman, or to get a good defensive tackle. And I think those are probably the top needs that they have. And they also might be staring at the best linebacker. Peyton Wilson had a huge year. Cedric Gray is a monster. To me, Cedric Gray is very, very safe. They want to trade back from 31 to 41, add another day 2 pick or day 3 pick or a couple picks and draft Cedric Gray. I think that's a very safe route for the Niners to go. Gray, I could easily see just plug and play him right next to Fred Warner and not miss a beat with Dre Greenlaw out probably for a good portion of the year, you would think, based on last year's Achilles. All right. Hope you enjoyed the video. We're also brought to you by Aura. And now a word from our sponsor, Aura.
Have you ever typed your name on the internet and seen all of your private information is online? Are you tired of receiving tons of spam calls from random numbers? Are you receiving more and more of these as time has gone on? Well, that's where Aura, the sponsor of today's show, can really help you out. Data brokers sell your information to scammers and spammers and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, your email, your home address, all your records, your health records, who your relatives are. It's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it also protects me from hackers who could use the information to help them access my social media accounts, my bank accounts, or any other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats I can't see. I get other features like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more without having to download several different apps. It's really easy to set up. And best of all, I get everything at one affordable price. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to the link in the description to start your 2-week free trial.
Thanks to Aura for sponsoring The Krug Show. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.